So the introduction of the play itself talks about that beginning and the impact that Dutchman had on my generation of writers. Of course, I wasn't aware of all of that at the time. I remember certainly the impact it had on me. But later on, when I started meeting other young writers in my age group, we were all talking about the same thing. Man, did you see The Dutchman? Or man, did you read The Dutchman and The Slave? A one-act play that was sort of a companion piece to The Dutchman. And we just had we were just mesmerized. And then other writers began to emerge. And I became aware of even writers who were a generation ahead of Amiri. And all of that had an impact on me, particularly once I got to New York in 1967. Within a year of arriving here, I was meeting older writers like Abram Hill, who had written a play called Strivers Row back in 1938, 39, somewhere in there, which was a look at the black middle class and its aspirations in, right at the height of the Depression. And I met people like Ossie Davis and Osceola Archer, who was the founder of the American Negro Theater, where Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte and Ossie Davis trained. The more I learned, the further into that world I began to plunge gladly. It was great. It was, oh man, the actors, directors, writers, performing in spaces half the size of this room, sometimes, performing on street corners, a couple of times on rooftops in the summer. The challenges and some of the learning on the spot that we did at that time. And the conversations, which I think are really important for every young writer. The conversations that you have, not only with people inside the business, but with the people outside. People who have no connection to the theater at all, other than they like to come and see plays. But what do they want to see in the plays? How do the plays impact on them? And then from what I learned when I was in school, when I was at Howard, Ted Shine, who was one of my playwriting teachers, used to talk about listening to rhythms of speech. And Washington, D.C. is one of the best places in the world to listen to rhythms of speech. As an international city, as the nation's capital, people from all over the country and all over the world are there. And where we went to school, it was only a stone's throw. You could walk from our campus to Columbia Road, and Columbia Road had all these different restaurants, the Ethiopian restaurant, the Vietnamese restaurant, the Thai restaurant, all of that was there right along Columbia Road. And so Ted used to tell us, go into the restaurants, go into the bars, stand on the street corner and listen to people speak. And I got to the point where a Southern accent, I learned how Southern accents have their, they have their own idiosyncrasies, not the ones that you might normally think. Because a person from Arkansas does not really sound like a person from Mississippi. And a person from Mississippi doesn't sound like a person from North Carolina. There are these nuances in speech. There's these nuances in rhythms of speech. And I got to the point where, when I was in Washington on a regular basis, Virginia. Oh yeah, that's Southern Maryland. And that's Maryland Eastern Shore. So You could hear the differences, and then I could start using them in plays. And once I started using them in some of the scenes and things that we wrote in class, I could start developing ideas about what is motivating characters and what they're doing.